All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for our alumni spotlight with Rutgers alumnus Fran Rotella. Fran, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a great honor.
So, you graduated from Rutgers University. What school?
The school formerly known as Cook College back in 1992.
Ah, you're a cookie.
I'm a cookie, yes.
That's awesome. And so, you graduated from Cook College. Did you live on Cook?
I did. I lived on Cook for all 4 years, and I know it's kind of unusual being a communications major at Cook. I was one of the few, but for me, it was to have like I never considered myself someone who's into science, biology, environment, and it really opened my eyes, back then to so many things. And it was really, I thought it was a great balance of my education at Rutgers. So I loved my time there. It's amazing.
That's awesome. So, you got, so actually, let's go back a second. How'd you end up at Cook?
It was just a matter of I had, I was doing like a campus tour of Rutgers, and I was with my dad, who kind of said, well, let's let's look around on our own. And we went around to the different campuses, and I really liked Cook College. I just loved that campus feel. Like it felt like, just the experience. And I was there and we were walking around, and I just knew in my gut. I always tell people, my advice to everyone always trust your gut. And I was walking around Cook campus, and I said, this is where I'm meant to be.
Now, so I forgot to give a little bit of an introduction. I was so stunned at Cook. But you have been at MTV, you have been at ESPN, NFL Network, NBC Sports. You are an Emmy award-winning sports media executive. So you've done a lot since you graduated from Cook, but you got to Rutgers through a tour, and you went to Cook because you loved it, felt like home. And so you're a communication major, you're at Cook. What's your first experience at Rutgers? What are some memorable times?
Well, it was interesting because I wasn't sure if, as a communications major, that I should have been at Rutgers, right? Like, because I thought the path had to go a certain way. But being at Rutgers, I worked at the dean's office at Cook College, and just exploring internships, I was able to, because New Brunswick is very easy. It's an easy commute into the city. I was able to do numerous internships in New York, like throughout in the fall semester, in the spring semester, where there wasn't as much competition. Say in the summer, people come back from all over the country and come back and want to do internships over the summer. So I was able to do it, and I was able to do it like in the fall. And my first internship, and it was funny because the internship coordinator is like, well, we're not sure about this one, was at MTV in the news department. So and I just loved it, and I actually wound up working for them off and on during spring breaks and summers. And lo and behold, when I go to interview for a job there, one of the guys I interned with was in the office next door to the hiring manager. And yeah, so like that's kind of how I got the job and how it all kind of started. But if it wasn't for those internships, might not have happened.
Were there any experiences at Rutgers, clubs, organizations that you think helped prepare you for what would come?
I think it was interesting because I was in Alpha Chi Omega at Rutgers. I was not sure I wanted to rush a sorority, and my friends were like, oh, just come. So I all right, we'll go. We went to the parties. And again, it was something like I found myself kind of doing a lot in the sorority, in the Greek community at Rutgers. I wound up being the president of Alpha Chi Omega. And it really just helped. That whole experience helped me with organization, time management, conflict resolution, charitable work. Like, so it really just sort of laid the foundation for pretty much everything I've done since.
That makes sense. The Greek community does a lot at Rutgers. Was Dance Marathon a thing then? I'm I'm blanking on the timeline.
I believe so. I'm not, I don't consider myself a dancer. So
Okay.
I will never win an Emmy for dancing. So I usually did not participate.
So you were at MTV for 5 years, and then or longer. Was it
Yeah.
5 years
Yeah.
longer?
A little bit
Um,
longer. Yeah.
and then you moved to sports.
Yes.
Tell
So
us about that.
I loved the live event experience at MTV was my favorite. We had done presidential town halls, concerts, video music awards, Grammy awards, movie awards. So I just love that excitement of live events. And at that time, MTV was doing less of them. And, I've always been a sports fan. And I wound up just that I was like, if I could do live TV all the time, like, so my favorite part of my job now would be, which is 10%, would be 100% of my job, going forward. So I had, through some contacts, with ESPN, and they were like, "Do you want to do it?" And I was like, "Yeah." And the only thing I had to decide was if I wanted to, move to Central Connecticut. And I said, "I'll do it for 2 years," and I wound up doing it for 8. So
That's well, I guess we're not technically rivals with UConn anymore, so I won't say anything bad about Connecticut.
I did
But
go to a Rutgers UConn game while I was while I was there.
who
So yes, Rutgers was still in the Big East.
did we win?
Of course we did.
Excellent. Now, the did you get to work on any sort of Rutgers events while you were working on Sports Center and
No,
ESPN?
I mean, it was mostly sort of covering, whatever the, event was. However, Coach Ciano did some work on NFL Live while I was there working on the NFL studio side. So his first day on the ESPN campus, my boss was like, take Ciano out to lunch. I said, really? I was like, okay. And it was great. And we got to talk about, I just, for me, I said, as was able to thank him because I think he's really been, a, a big reason why the change at Rutgers in the athletic side has happened. And that's why, I think it's just pretty amazing what he's been able to do with Rutgers football. So it was great. And he's such a great guy. And it was so wonderful to, be able to talk to him about that. And we also had that same day, the McCourty twins were up doing, so it was a Rutgers love fest that day. So it was a good day.
Anything you remember specifically from the conversation?
Um, it was, I think it's just, I would say, I feel like when Rutgers alumni get together and talk, it's as if you've known each other forever. Right. And it's funny because I had also had, and I don't know, it's just like that shared experience because I've also had that with Catherine Tappan, another Rutgers alumni, NBC Sports talent, and we were doing this panel. I was moderating and interviewing her, and someone afterwards had said, "I didn't know that you and Catherine were such good friends." And I said, "No, I met her 10 minutes ago." And I said, but that's people from Rutgers. That is Rutgers alumni. It's just this automatic, just easygoing, kinship that you have.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Hey, that's exactly what we like to hear. And I believe the founder of ESPN was actually a Rutgers alumnus as well.
Yeah, so it's great. It's really wonderful to see that Rutgers pride in the alumni community.
So you worked ESPN, you worked NFL Network, NFL Studio, and then you switch from football specifically to the Olympics.
Yeah,
Do I have
well,
that
it was
right?
actually
Or-
during, that was one of the things NBC you get as an NBC sports employee. They ask some folks to, basically you get like a little reprieve from your day job and you work on the Olympics. And they were like, "Do you want to work on the Olympics?" And I was like, "Yeah." And you know, I did not go to Tokyo. I went to Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey. I was at CNBC's headquarters. Um, and it was great. It was a great experience. Normally, we would have all been in Stanford, but because of COVID, they separated some of the studios. We had folks in Miami, we had folks at 30 Rock in New York, folks in Stanford, and we were at CNBC. I produced the broadcast coverage for CNBC's part of the Olympics, and it was great. And we had the whole building to ourselves because the markets closed, at a certain time, and due to the time change in Tokyo, we were the overnight. So it was an amazing experience. The stories and just technically what NBC was able to do with the Olympics under the circumstances was pretty incredible. There are so many talented people and so much that happens behind the scenes. It was really great to be a part of. And I was nominated for an Emmy for the Olympics. I thought that one was going to be the win, but it wasn't.
Well, let's lean into that though. So you were nominated for Emmy for that. A lot of people understand what goes into being an Emmy Award winner for being an actress or being an Emmy Award winner for set design. What does being an Emmy Award winner for what you do look like? What are the things that people look for? What are the things that people are specifically recognizing you for?
I think in this one, so what I wound up winning this Emmy for, I've also been nominated 10 times, so I thought it was never
Wow,
happening.
that's
I've been nominated
fantastic.
as a producer, I've been nominated as part of a production team. This one the win was for Outstanding Technical Studio for the Super Bowl pregame show. And as I was leading into the Olympics, um, I was asked to start some Super Bowl planning. NBC was the broadcaster, and there was just so much. You think about every city has like an NBC local affiliate. We also had regional sports networks in, 8 major markets. So it's kind of bringing all of these people together, not to mention all the other people that descend upon a Super Bowl city, nationally and internationally, right? Like it's a huge event. So it was just being part of the team that oversaw all of these things going on, multiple locations, who's at SoFi, there's a whole radio setup. It's called Radio Row in downtown Los Angeles, all practices, team availability. So it's just a lot of moving parts. So you need someone to not only be able to make decisions quickly, but communicate quickly and make sure everyone knows everything, because you can't, things are changing so fast. So it really takes, not to sound cliche, but it really takes a village to get all of that going. And I think, at least for the NBC team coming off the Olympics and all that technical knowledge, every shoot, every interview, every student, you learn something, right? And that you could take that at any job. Every day you could take something into your next experience. And I think the Olympics helped inform what happened for the Super Bowl, and we wound up winning an Emmy for that.
That's very cool. So was it a team Emmy or
It was a team Emmy. There was I don't know the number offhand on how many people, but it was a lot. It was a lot because it was it was the Football Night in America crew. It was a lot of different parts all sort of coming together.
now, I believe that Super Bowl was in LA, correct?
Yes,
You said
correct.
Radio Row, and that was the Rams versus the Bengals.
Yes. LA in
Um,
February is beautiful. So for anyone on the West Coast, you forget how wonderful it is until you're there. It's like, wow.
that wasn't a professional football town until the last 5 years or so.
Yeah.
Um, how did that change the process? Was that more of a challenge, or did that not really come up?
No, I think that the challenge is always when you're in a city like Los Angeles, and I had this when I was in Miami for the Super Bowl a couple of years prior, when it's so spread out, when you're in a large city, it could be challenging to get around. So a lot of that was, if something was, you have to give yourself a lot of extra time to get from point A to point B. And especially as it gets closer to the event and the amount of people that are around continues to increase. So, LA maybe isn't a football town because there's so many other things going on, but the fans show up and you see who's really, it was pretty amazing. Even driving to SoFi Stadium, it is, there are people on the streets wearing Rams gear and block parties and tailgates, and you see all of it. So the fans, the passionate fans come out, and I think it's gonna, if it wasn't a football town now, it definitely is. So it was great.
Now, we talk a lot to our alumni about the successes they've had. What are some challenges that you faced and maybe some ways that you've overcome them over, a career that spanned so many different areas?
I think it's really, the one thing for me, and the one thing I talk to a lot of students who are graduating and looking to get, into media, regardless of whether it's in front of the camera or behind. But especially when you're dealing with live sports, there's the challenge is you need to want it so bad that you give up some things, whether it's, working Christmas, Thanksgiving, 4th of July, nights, weekends, holidays, especially being in Connecticut, I would have to drive into work and some big snowstorms, and you don't get snow days, and you need to really be dedicated to that, and that sometimes some of those other things have to kind of be secondary. And that's something that commitment needs to happen. And I was lucky in that my family has been extremely supportive, and they understand that I'm not gonna be there for Thanksgiving dinner, or maybe we'll celebrate a week early, or we'll celebrate a week late, or I might miss a birthday party, that sort of thing. So you need to really be prepared for that. And then secondary is, there are times where, you're in between jobs, and and sometimes that takes longer to find that next opportunity, and you gotta just sort of stick with it. And that can be challenging, because there's been times where you're like, why am I doing this? Like, what, should I give up? Is it time to do something else? But it's that passion, that love for telling stories, and that excitement of it that keeps you going.
Were there any crises or things that went wrong during that Super Bowl preparation that, we wouldn't know because your team did such a good job covering it up?
Um, no, I would say it's interesting, and this group, um, they everyone's done it for so long, and sometimes with certain things, and it's funny, I think sometimes when you might not get tripped up for this, but believe me, there's been times we've been tripped up for Sports Center broadcast, or you're 10 seconds before air, and your anchor's not sitting in the chair because they were late getting to the studio, or your guest doesn't show up, or someone switches the wrong those things happen. It did not happen on the Super Bowl, but those things happen a lot in like day to day. And it sounds chaotic sometimes, like in the control room, and sometimes people are like, wait, where's this, and they're it never appears on air. And that's one thing I always tell people: as chaotic as it feels behind the scenes, as long as it doesn't feel chaotic in front of the camera to the viewer, then we've done our job.
That's fantastic. Now, I know we're heading into kind of the last couple minutes here. Um, in terms of, we talked earlier about that kind of immediate connection with other Rutgers alumni and just members of the Rutgers community. How do you keep in contact and keep those connections strong with the folks that you graduated with and the friends that you made?
It's really just, it's just continuing to, whether it's text or emails or Facebook messages or following everybody on Instagram. We actually just did a get together, a group of my sorority sisters. We did like a getaway weekend, and I'm lucky enough to be able to spend the last couple of summers at the Jersey Shore, which is great. And a bunch of my friends and fellow Rutgers alumni are down in the area. Oh, let's get together. Let's go here. Let's meet up for dinner. Let's have a beach day. So it's really just kind of keeping those connections and just kind of making, the effort to meet up. We did last year, a bunch of us got together for homecoming, and a lot of my friends now have children that are currently students at Rutgers. So we look at the calendar. Okay, let's plan which game are we going to? When are we going to get together? So it's really just kind of keeping those connections and making sure you get that face-to-face time, or even getting together on Zoom calls. We did a lot of that during the pandemic, and so it's really just keeping those personal connections going.
When you go to homecoming or other Rutgers sporting events, does it ever feel weird to not be in charge of broadcasting?
No, I try to put that aside. Especially the jump. I'm like, oh wait, so you gotta just. It's kind of nice to just. Sometimes it is really nice to just sit there as a fan and enjoy, and sort of as I said earlier, just to see the evolution of Rutgers, whether it's driving around campus and seeing how things have changed at the university in general, and seeing how how the athletics program has grown into what it is, and it's just really nice to see. And it's been, like I said, great to even see I have a cousin who's currently going to school there, and my friends' kids, and just seeing them see the Rutgers experience through their eyes now it's been really great and really rewarding for me.
That's fabulous. Now, if there are Rutgers alumni watching this or reading this, because we always transcribe, if they're doing that and they want to see your work in the coming months, what should they be keeping an eye out for?
Well, right now I'm trying to figure that out. So I'm still looking. I'm looking for that next kind of big project, and not everything has to be, on the same level as a Super Bowl or the Olympics, right? You just need to have something that you're really passionate about. I think that for me, I think whether it's the conference or league level, I kind of feel like I'm starting to head in more of that direction. And I think that I could use the media experience to help there, especially, there's a lot of changes coming to the Big Ten, starting in the summer. So I think I might be leaning away from the producing a little bit and more into using that experience on the other side.
You heard it here first, folks. Fran Rotella, head of the Big Ten Network.
Call me.
So we're coming into our last couple minutes. I think we kind of talked about, one of the questions we always ask is, what's your biggest point of pride in Rutgers? And I think we've already touched on that a little bit. But I guess the only other question I would have is, what kind of advice do you have for folks who are interested in following in your shoe steps?
It's really all about networking. Like I said, almost every job I've had has come through a connection, whether and to not be shy about it, and to not be shy about, if you want to be at ESPN, who do I know there? Who do my parents know there? Who do my parents' friends know there? Maybe it's a friend of a friend of a friend, and just not being shy about reaching out and asking for what you want and being really honest about that, whether it is, I really want to be, I see these cameraman up and down the camera people up and down the field, and I think it's so cool, and I want to be on the sidelines for, Giants games and running up and down the field with a then do it, right? And find a way, how can I get that experience? And I think you need to not be shy about reaching out, and especially now, LinkedIn is a great resource. And just kind of using that to connect with as many people as possible. And same thing with alumni, right? Use the alumni association, and who do I know at Rutgers? What Rutgers alumni do I know that I could connect with? And it's just making those connections with those decision makers that'll get you in the door.
Awesome. Fran, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
And we can't wait to see what's next.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
All right, so tell me about the Emmy.
So it comes in this massive box that almost, the best way I could describe it is, it looks like something a ventriloquist would put a puppet in. And it's this black box, and you open it up and it's lined, and then the Emmy's in there, and it also has like a cloth to clean it. And it's heavy as anything. It was heavier than I thought, and it's really pointy, and it's engraved, and there's instructions on the bottom. So it's really kind of wild. There's like a whole thing about preserving it, and rules for use and copyright stuff. But anyway, yeah, it's really kind of neat how it comes in this massive box. Like, it's very bizarre. Now I'm like, well, I know the Emmy will be displayed, but I'm not really sure what I'm doing with the box.
Is it as satisfying to hold as you think it will be?
Yes. I can't even. I've always been like, wow, I wonder what, you see people on the award show holding. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome.
That's great.
I put on my LinkedIn post, I've touched the Stanley Cup a few times because I know I'm never going to win it. So I've touched it.
Never say never.
Maybe. But I've always I've been around a lot of people who have Emmys, and I've never touched it. I've never touched it until it was in my apartment. So it was very rewarding.
That's awesome. Now I want to go find an Emmy to hold. And I want to see what that feels like.
It's pretty great.
That's fabulous. It must feel really satisfying if, you said 10 nominations, right?
Yes.
It must feel very satisfying.
I really didn't think it was going to happen. After a while, you're like, oh boy.
And you're like Leonardo DiCaprio. Eventually, you get one.
Eventually.
That's fantastic, and hopefully many more to come.
Thank you.